I just had a beautiful conversation with Benji Portheault. Benji has worked with so many chess players, including super grandmasters. He talked about the mental side of chess, meditation, dealing with tilt, tournament preparation, and mindset behind chess success. Benji has a course called Mindfulness for the Tournament Player. I will post a link on this video description. In this conversation, you'll hear about the role of identity in chess, how to build confidence, how to deal with the rating anxieties, and the role of meditation in setting our minds for chess success. Now, I will leave you with Benji Portheault. Welcome back to this amazingly interesting episode for today as we are starting this new year. Benji Portheault has a PhD and also a sports psychologist. He will answer all the questions about rating anxiety, psychology of chess. He will be clarifying so many interesting questions today. Benji, thank you so much for joining me. I was really looking forward to this episode. Thank you for coming.
Well, thanks to you, John. It is really a pleasure and an honor to be here with you.
Honor is mine.
I think you're part of a new wave of people coming to chess. So we've known some really famous coaches and people that have been there for years and years, and I put you in people also people you've had on the podcast before, like Ono, what's his name, as well. Azel Chua. It's like these people are coming up to the scene, and in fact, it's the fact that it's not necessarily the highest rated player or the people who've been there for a long time that have the most interesting angle on things, on chess. I mean, let's say you need to teach a 1500 player how to calculate. Well, it's not necessarily the grandmaster that's going to be the best teacher, right? It's likely going to be just someone that is going to have some quite unique perspective on things, and so you're part of this crop of people with really interesting perspective, and it's super refreshing to see.
Yeah, thank you so much, Benji. I mean, as I said, I just started this channel maybe a year and a half ago, and only this podcast series just started, this year. So I'm really enjoying it so far. I learn a lot from my guests. They are all very interesting guests with unique angles. My community learns a lot from them. I mean, it's a win-win situation actually. Also, lots of my guests are improving. They get more visibility and so on. So it's a beautiful cycle that we just created. And you are the first guest so far, among maybe 15 guests so far, that has this, let's say, expertise when it comes to psychology, mindset, anxiety. And I heard this from so many people, including myself. They keep asking me those questions. How do we get better when it comes to rating anxiety? Because also, especially adult improvers, right? They sometimes have trouble playing games, daring to play games, because they're so scared of losing their rating and so on. Yeah? So today, if time allows, I will be asking you so many interesting questions also for myself. And I know that you work with so many chess people, including British national team in the Olympiads. Guys, Benji is a very experienced sports psychologist, already well-known name in the chess world. So I will let you to briefly introduce yourself and your background, Benji, for my audience.
Thank you. So just to clarify, I think if you call yourself a sports psychologist, it's kind of like a protected title, in many countries. So which I'm not. So I'm calling myself like a performance coach, right?
Coach. Yes.
So very quickly, my background, I studied physics when I was young, so I have a background in science, and then I've had a career in data science in London, and I got into coaching because I was really interested at first in the physiological aspect of performance. I mean, it became quite fashionable and the zeitgeist 5 years ago, and that was interesting. But I wanted to get into the mental side because I thought that was the most interesting. So I did a degree from the University of Paris, Orsay, and then I thought there was a big niche in terms of chess player having very poor lifestyle, in terms of like what they can do to improve their performance. And I started out very based on physiology and interested in all sorts of things. What can you do for your brain? Kind of a mechanistic. And in parallel for these years, through my own past in terms of spiritual, for lack of a better word, I got really into meditation. Then I started to study Zen quite seriously with a teacher, and in a way, like, I grabbed so many things from that angle that were complementary to a lot of tools that modern psychology, like that I got from my degree, in terms of like performance and psychology. So I kind of have like built my own thing, and also tying to what I was saying about like this new crop of people.
Right.
I think you have to, the thing, like, you have to stay on the bus.
Stay on the bus. No? Please tell us.
So I think it's an artist. We can put it in the show note, like the original like talk and idea to properly credit that person. But I think it's like for photography student, they're like, so the story goes like this. If you're on the bus in Helsinki, right? At first, all the buses go on the same track, right? So like if you take photos, it will be all the same photo of the same suburbs and the same streets and so on. But if you stay on the bus, eventually all the different buses will go into a separate direction.
Right.
And eventually you will be able to take photos that are like truly unique from like the other people. And so I think by staying on the bus, eventually you develop a view that is truly yours,
right.
and that refines through time, and which brings your philosophy to something that is truly yours. So I think I'm glad I stayed on the bus, long enough to not just copy paste people's ideas, but really having my own voice, my own ideas. Eventually started a Substack, which I never thought I would do at the beginning. So that's all. I managed to get my own view also from feedback. So I got really lucky to have a few professionals trust me from the start, and I got started to interact and help out chess players. And I was very lucky to be with the English team at the Olympiad. It was mostly helping the women, but I also had a lot of interaction and helped the open team. And that was like such a fantastic experience to be there. I got also lucky enough to be in the playing hall for a few rounds. So like you just learn so much, like by being and interacting with people which are at the highest level. And now so the coaching is like a part-time thing for me. Right, so it's not my full-time job, and it's kind of like mostly word of mouth. I get some amateurs, I get some professionals come to me, I get some amateurs come to me, also sometimes parents, for their children,
kids.
So it's like I'm there, and then some people find me about to help them about all sorts of things related to chess. And I'm not a fantastic player. I'm just an average club player, I guess. At 1700 FIDE,
right? Around 1700, yeah.
So I know the horsey move. I try to play from time to time. I think it's important, to keep
to feel what
contact.
Yeah,
keep contact with the competition, because it's like also I've got ideas. How about to do this and that, and then like there's nothing like actually testing it. So
Right.
I kind of always want to be playing at least one big tournament per year. I think it's a good. It's not much,
Right.
but that's I think it's really useful when you're coaching.
You have played recently, right? You played recently. I
Yeah,
see.
I did play in Le Mans,
How did it go?
nine round
Nine
of
round.
chess in 5 days.
Yeah. Intense.
Which because it's yeah, so morning round, afternoon round,
Yeah.
and I think I did okay. Yeah, I had what do you have, like 2 wins and 3 draws, and it's really tough to for me to I get into really good positions, and then like in time trouble I'm
Ah.
really slow. I think it's unfortunately when you learn chess in your 30s like I did, you're always much slower calculator than someone
I actually
that's
didn't know that you learned the game of chess at the age of 30, right? I
yeah
didn't know that. Aha. Okay, that's quite a late start. Yeah.
yeah yeah
We'll
um
discuss. We'll discuss the adult improver challenges, especially. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because that
yeah
was one of
so
my questions to you. You know, like I have so many subscribers ask me this question specifically, that they play a good game, they build an advantage, and then they spoil everything later in the game. Also,
uh
partly because of time trouble issues. I mean, you just told me exactly what you struggle with, right? And or is there a way to resolve these issues? Of course, easier said than done. But what do you say? Psychological side. How to convert winning positions? How not to, get distracted by all these thoughts and so on.
so I think it's you need to have an understanding of what pressure is, and this
Aha.
notion that um, as pressure grows, you will be giving your best, because if there's no stakes, you won't
You
apply
don't.
yourself. Um, but then there is this, it grows and grows and grows up to the zone in which it's going to be extremely uncomfortable. And if the pressure keeps going, you can have a catastrophic collapse.
Aha.
And in a way, there is no way around having to be comfortable in this uncomfortable situation,
Hmm.
right? And this is something you can do exercise with.
Mm-hmm.
You need to accept in a way. So that's like what one thing is like this so-called like um, you know um, acceptance behavioral therapy, where
Right.
you need to accept your thoughts so that you can you know not be led by them, but be able to let them go or place them aside, and then keep playing. Okay. So all of these psychological things, they are often they're a skill, right? It's like being skilled at chess, right? So like
Right.
any skill, they require practice. They require like the exact some exercises to really diagnose. They also show up in slightly different ways in different people, right? Like is it going to be emotional? Like for some people, it's really visceral, right? Or
Yeah.
like a feeling of panic, a feeling of dread. For some people, it will be like a story in their head, like self-talk that will interfere. So you can do things that are like slightly, targeted to this, but there will be no way around, having to go through this very unpleasant phase and being able to go through. But it's in a way it's this is what life is, right?
Yeah.
And I want to tell you this story.
Yeah.
The Buddhist scholar and philosopher Alan Watts had this.
I listen to Alan Watts a lot. Yeah, like in my youth.
There's so many tapes of talks of Alan Watts is fantastic.
Yes, fantastic.
He had this fantasy when he was a kid of like playing a prank by sending a glass of water to someone by the post, just sending water. And people would open the package and all the water would spill and they would be like wet, right? But obviously it's not possible to package water inside paper and send it, right? Like
right.
it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And our desire to have a control over life, over chess is like we are trying to package a glass of water inside an envelope, right? It's just not possible. It is. How do we relate to chess as a whole is so complex, and there will be so much of us at stake because let's face it, a lot of amateurs actually they spend so much time on chess, right? It's extremely important. And you see, for me, whether people are amateur or professional, they almost come up with similar type of things because in a way, chess is a lot of their life, right? Obviously, if you're a professional, that's all your life, right? And you've got like, the issues are slightly different. But for the amateurs, it's really important, right? Like to unlock the last percentage, because if you work on it, like even something you do an hour a day, right? And a lot of people do an hour a day of chess, you know, or more, because it's your main hobby, and then you go to a tournament, and then something blocks you from unlocking what you think you're capable of. It's a big deal, but chess is like it's not, and Ono said this, like it's not like you're studying for an exam and then on the day of the exam you just give the answers, right? It's like it is so many things that you have to put together to compete, right? And this is messy and this is complex, and we just can't have a one way or this one weird trick to be good at, on the day of the tournament. There will be difficult moments, there will be difficult situation, and people have to, first of all, come to grips that it's going to be difficult, and then like have tools to handle all the negative thoughts. So I'm a firm believer that it's not possible to push down a thought. It's like there's this analogy, like you've got a beach ball and you put it on the water. The harder you push, the more it's gonna pop out of the water. So it's very much a case of like, okay, the thoughts will arise, and now what do you do with this, right? And one key thing is, I'm a huge proponent of meditation in one form or another. There's like several ways to meditate, and this is like one of the key skills that allow you to have a little bit of distance between you and your thought, right? Just like to remove the tight grip of our thoughts, feeling, and emotion, and be able to respond in a measured way rather than just react. Like respond, not react is something that is quite often used in that sense. So just very briefly, meditation, you've got several types. You've got focus meditation, where like you have one object that you keep in mind, and you keep it, you're focused on that object, and you go back to the object when you lose focus. And there's like open monitoring, which is more like, okay, it's like you're being by a river and you imagine your thoughts passing by without like being attached. So
Right.
to get like this view of having some distance between you and your thoughts, this open monitoring type of meditation is very useful. So that would be one exercise that I would give to people.
Create a little gap so we don't identify with those random thoughts, and we observe them basically as they will arise during the game.
Because
as well.
100%. Because I don't think they're possible to be blocked.
Yeah, so you recommend people to regularly practice these type of meditations, and that will eventually might help them in those stressful situations when they are, let's say, ahead, and then they get distracted by the elo. What if I beat this guy? How much elo I will gain? And then, because all these thoughts, right, they also sort of distract us. They get all the slots in our working memories. We discussed it with Aidan Reiner as well. You know? Like limited working memory resources and all these additional thoughts as well that they sort of raise for the same slots. And then you don't focus on the actual game situation anymore. And then you blunder, basically.
It's all about playing the position in front of you, right? If you can get back to playing the position in front of you, and, if you're worse, you defend. If you're better, you just keep your advantages, and not like the position you had 3 moves ago, and not the position you're gonna have tomorrow, right? Just play the position in front of you, right? Obviously, easier said than done, because there is no one thing that I can say that will. There's like tips and tricks and exercises, like getting back to your senses. So there's a variety of there's a toolkit, right? And then people have to try what works best for them, right? So for example, tennis players, they like physical cues are really good, right? Like you can feel the fuzz of the ball before you serve, and that will get you out of thinking it's a match point, right? And you're gonna have your routine once you start your bouncing routine, like you're in it, you stop thinking it's a match point. It obviously also requires some skill. In chess is like, well, it might be that you can get people to like, okay, feel your toes in a complex position to get back out of your head a little bit. It might be that it's it's something else, but it's always about creating this little bit of response in terms of your thoughts, and being able to not following it like crazy.
Right. Yes, because that was the second question, obviously, right? I lost so many games like that in my life, against grandmasters even. I was having a winning position, then I make one mistake, and I, let's say, spoil the advantage. The game is complete equal, but that thought that I know that I missed a winning position is leading to a second blunder very, very soon, right? I couldn't readjust myself. That was one of my biggest, let's say, psychological problems when I was active on the board. I lost so many winning positions against the higher position. Also partly because of stress I received. I'm almost beating this grandmaster. Up comes the mistake, and then the second mistake follows because I couldn't readjust. Yeah, that past was still affecting me basically. So what you're saying is that I need maybe more like routines, connecting to my body, as you mentioned, maybe feeling my toes, or maybe going out, washing my face.
Open monitoring meditation will be like the first line of training.
Right. So I could catch my thoughts at that moment as they arise, create a gap.
Yeah, and it's like your thoughts are there for a reason, You're like you've got mechanism trying to protect you, and all sorts of thinking patterns, and it's about saying like, okay, that's great that you're here for me, but like I don't need to think how I messed up that position right now.
Right.
So it's about, okay, we'll deal with this later, but right now I need to place this position that's equal and try to draw it. And before it was winning, okay, cool. We'll see about this. later on.
In some sense, chess, if you think about that, right, philosophically, it's one of the most Buddhistic games in the world as well, like also the cost of a move is huge. You can spoil any position if you slip for a single moment, like the game is so designed that you need to be at all times focusing on the current moment, past is not so important. It's only about this very moment that is the most important, right, during the chess game.
Yes.
You can spoil any, like a boxing. I think boxing is the closest game to chess because no matter how much advantage you accumulated, a single punch and you can get knockout basically, right? So the very dynamic of this game, so-called cruel game, right, is also sort of needing, in some sense, this Buddhistic mentality that always catching ourselves to the current moment and focusing on the very current moment without getting distracted by all these thoughts. I mean, yeah, they're there for post-mortem to get lessons, but not during the game, right? Not while you're making decisions, basically. Yeah. So, yeah.
Of course, it's during the game, it's the hardest because you've got seconds, minutes or seconds at most. Well, at the worst case, seconds. At the best case, you've got minutes to be able to create a little bit of distance between you and your thoughts. The first port of call is like, okay, from one day to the next, because there you've got hours, right?
Right.
And it's obviously easier, right? So the first thing is like being able to reset yourself, your state from one day to the next. And as you become more skilled to do the same thing in seconds. And
right.
Again, that requires more skills, more training, depending on what your problems are. Role of identity in chess, and
yeah, we can discuss that maybe.
Yeah, this I want to cover because it's slightly different. It's
right.
Because here often what's arising is a story, right? And we all have stories about ourselves,
Yeah.
I'm not a good chess player. I always collapse in time trouble,
Right.
So for example, like, stories I would have, like unhelpful thought patterns. Often we are so critical of ourselves. Like I would never, ever dream of, speaking to someone else the way I sometimes speak to myself,
Right.
But so I think we all have sometimes extremely toxic stories, for lack of a better word, that we will tell ourselves that are just unhelpful. And I think it's important to recognize this story arising. Again, your meditation's like the key leverage point. It's a leverage. It's not like, oh yeah, meditation will fix everything. It's just like the highest leverage point for you to have like a handle on the way the thoughts arise, right? But so when you recognize this story, what I love is to give them a name.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, if you think you collapse in time trouble, it's the too weak, too slow story.
Too slow story. Yeah.
Just give them a really ridiculous name that, here's the snail story because you're too slow, right? Just give them a ridiculous name, and it's like you catch the story arising and you're like, here's that story again, you give it the ridiculous name, instantly like diffuse it, instantly diffuses it. So I quite like, this tip, and that's something that people can, I'm sure a lot of the listeners, they could, grab a notebook and I think I would encourage everyone to, when they go to a tournament, to have a small a notebook to journal their mental state and things that happen, so that they can take action. And clearly, you can have a page for your stories, and you write them down, and then you name them, and then you're like, next time they show up, just give them a name.
Catch them at that moment. So
yes.
The more ridiculous it is, the more easily it gets diffused somehow. Yeah, like that's the function of it, basically.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, super nice tip. So this was about the role of identity in chess. Many chess players give this identify themselves with their rating. With their rating points, and look at the world self-worth basically with their performance, you know, if they lose or if they feel stupid and how can I lose this idiot, you know, like they really tie themselves to this rating point elo. And yeah, we want to build a healthy relationship basically. And of course that's also about the rating anxiety and the fear of playing, right, Benji? I mean, I have so many students myself as well. They fear to go and play in tournaments because they don't want to lose their rating, right? Do you have any other specific tips for these people to gain confidence and dare more? And, you know, like we discussed more or less, again, thoughts.
Yeah.
And so on.
Yeah. So let's talk about goal setting and let's talk about So first of all, it's you need to really ask yourself why you play chess. What's your goal? Why are you doing this? Because the answer, I mean, so it's separate. It might be that you just don't you like the idea of playing or the idea of the chess player, but you don't actually enjoy playing.
Right.
And you know, and then that's great. You know, you don't need to play in tournaments.
Right.
You don't need to place this burden on yourself that, you know, you need to play OTB tournaments if you don't have to, because people say like the thing is tournaments is actually the way to get good, right? As Nate loves to say this and really, I mean, especially, you know what? I think especially openings that you learn when you play, because you start to really think deeply about like a variation, and then like this is worth like 1,000,000 hours of opening of training on your own, right? Like actually having the position in a real game.
Right.
I think personally that's what I think. I think
Right,
it's a huge it's a huge boost versus like you know, just looking at lines in vacuum. So you need to clearly strengthen your intent, and I think that's you know, I wrote, maybe you can put a link to my Substack in the show notes. I really love the, you know, I'm really proud of the article I wrote on discipline, because
yes.
it's really a key to understand. Discipline is not punishing yourself. It's about bringing back to the forefront of your life the intent of what is really important for me, right? And then if something is important, that's how you're gonna bring in the effort to do it. And so again, it's about this, like, what do I want to do? And playing chess in a tournament is gonna be also, you know, packaging water in the mail. Like, it's so messy, it's difficult, it's uncertain, but it's fun. There's also so much reward. You get to meet people, you get to learn so much, you get to spend time on this, like,
Focus, concentrate, enter the flow state. And
amazing game that we love. So it is worth it, but it's good to, like, somehow take a step back and, like, okay, why would I want to protect my rating? What's my end goal here? What do I really want out of life? Because life's too short to do a hobby you're not enjoying.
Right. So the why question will definitely help those guys.
And the second part of your question was about confidence.
Yes. How do you build confidence then?
Okay. I think it's important to separate, like, the concept of confidence, which is, like, it's also linked to, like, personality traits, and the concept of what's called self-efficacy.
Yeah.
And self-efficacy is the belief that you can do a particular task. Okay? So you can be someone that's not necessarily, like, very confident as a personality trait, but if you know how to take wood and create a piece of furniture, you have high self-efficacy for this, right? So what people usually say, they want confidence. They want, what we want to bring is, like, this self-efficacy of playing good chess, right, and playing the good moves. And here it's like there's really like a whole bunch of there's a large toolbox. Looking at people doing the same thing is a great way to build up efficacy, right? That's why having role models is a great way. So sometimes there's one practice would be to pretend. A lot of athletes do this. It's not necessarily something I'm very fond of, but for some people it works so well. You pretend you're like your prime Kasparov. I mean, there's this well-known photo. He's probably like, I don't know, 18 on the photo. He's got a laser jacket and he's got the killer stare. Like
killer stare. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you want to do this like alter ego practice and pretend, it actually works really well for a lot of people.
Yeah. I also recommend guess the move training, by the way. That helped me personally. I took Kasparov's games in Najdorf and I was guessing his moves against the grandmasters. I was acting like I was Kasparov. I was acting like I was having his style. This aggressive, dominant style. To get better in the Najdorf opening, and that really helped me basically. Pretend that I'm crashing, Karpov with the black pieces.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, definitely helps.
100%. I don't want to veer into like giving chess advice because obviously I don't have the competency. Because chess is also super fluid. So I would be scared of like the one thing in chess that was actually as an adult. And especially, coming from science, it's how much things change from one move to the next. So, for example, it could be that in your game you can absolutely not play f4, right? f4 would just completely lead to collapse. But something very minor change in your opponent's position, and all of a sudden f4 is the one move you have to make. And I think that was like... still is probably one of the hardest thing to be able to completely switch my being like mentally flexible enough to understand that the position has
changed,
has completely changed. But to come back to confidence, I think it's important to ask, what is confidence, right? What is confidence? And it boils down to confidence is being a behavior, right? What does a confident person do?
Right.
And you know what? Just do this thing, right? And I think it's a case where I think to some extent fake it till you make it is quite does work.
Yeah.
Just write to yourself what would a confident person do, and try to implement some of these of this behavior. This is a good practical tip.
So like,
but yeah, board presence,
Gary's presence in the board, getting the watch out and looking at the staring his opponent and very confidently and so on.
Again, you don't have to. You can be a very like mild-mannered person and still be extremely competitive. I refuse this notion that you have to be ruthless. The ultra runner David Roche says you don't have to be a killer to kill, right? He's actually a very nice guy, and is still he broke like a big ultra running record, because ruthless preparation, and it's like, on the day of the race you kill, but you don't have to be a killer to kill. And when he said that, I'm like, 100%. He's right.
Interesting. Yeah, Benji, we have been discussing so many amazing things. So we covered, like anxiety, role of identity, confidence building, and so on. And we also discussed some in-game challenges, handling stress in winning positions, fighting against tilt, and adjusting to trends during the games, because things are happening all the time, and we have to be staying vigilant and at the moment at all times. And you mentioned a couple of tricks.
I feel it's like it will always come up as short and unsatisfactory because it will be to some extent, I say things about meditation and getting used to that skill, and like, yeah, there are exercises you can do, but it's very difficult to have like a one size fits all, because at the end of the day, it's also not possible, I think, to have a one size fits all. We need to come to grasp with what makes us human. And there is nothing magical about chess, right? Like the emotions that you have in a chess game, like if you're able to manage your emotions in a chess game, you're also able to manage your emotions when you're queuing at the supermarket and someone is slow or someone's trying to cut in front of you, and it's like, well, what do you do then, right? So we're really trying to solve a problem that is like, not simple, right? Like it's basically within the context of chess, but these are difficult things to do. So there is no there is no one magic trick for this. It's a lot of hard work. It's a bit like it's also like, as a chess coach, you tell me, like, so people come up with things like the steps method, but you're not. It's not like, oh, this game is gonna be level 6 of the step method, so it's gonna be exactly yours. Well, no, your opponent can play in weird and wonderful ways, and sometimes way above his rating or way below his rating. And what you have to do is it to some extent uncoachable, right? Like you gotta have to adapt to what's happening. It's highly concrete, and that's what like the human mind is also works in weird and wonderful ways.
Right. When I was talking to Dan Heisman, legendary coach, he also mentioned the skill side of things. That is, chess is also, of course, lots of pattern recognition involved, lots of knowledge, but also the entire skill side. Like as you discussed, like for example, he mentioned the ability of tolerating losses. He mentioned if it's like a scale from 0 to 100, that let's say if you're 100, then you cannot. Let's say you cannot stand any loss. You're so upset and you get so angry when you lose, that puts you in 100. And 0 is that you don't care. Yeah, you lose. It's actually there's no impact on you. So he told me that strong players, let's say grandmasters, top GMs, are let's say around 70 in that scale. That they really somehow hate losing. That affects them, but they don't get broken by it. Yeah, they don't reach 100 level. But to Dan Heisman, was like around 70 is the good ratio. That you really need to hate losing the game, so that drives you to work and not to lose on the next game. But then you still need to have the ability of taking losses and learn something from them. Yeah. If you don't care too much, then it's also not good, according to Dan Heisman.
Losing is a very is a very good one. It's the evergreen topic for me, because it's like, happens to everyone or almost everyone, right? Well, I guess even Magnus loses games, and I've written about it like several times.
Yes.
I in my latest the one I wrote maybe 6 months ago, I kind of differentiate several factors. I call it like biopsychosocial. Like you got physiological aspects, you've got psychological aspects of like thoughts in your own mind, and you've got the social aspects of how you think the loss changes how other people look at you, right? So you can I think it's very important to, again, we can link this in the show notes, but it's like, again, having a really fine-grained understanding of what is bothering you will be able to address this thing quite completely, more accurately. And for, in a way, when you've got a very strong emotion like this, there's if you look at the way the whole the Buddhists do it, they're two big main approaches, and one is going to be to create distance. Like, that's going to be like, okay, there's this loss is just a thought, and I will use techniques and ways to push this thought away, because I am not this thought. So like the putting distance. And there is another one that is, I think, even more powerful, and that's the way I chose to do it in my meditation course of like how you handle loss, is to collapse this distance and really make it like one. And then when you're truly one with this, it will just stop bothering you, right? Which might sound like magic, but it's basically also a way to not having like you and things happening. Like you just take it as being the thing happening, and that will just stop the struggle, right? Again, it's like the teacher Shinzen Yang has this equation, right? Pain is suffering times resistance, right? So if you want to decrease the pain, the suffering is not negotiable. It is there because you've lost your game. But it's basically you put the resistance part to zero to bring the pain to zero. And I don't think it's life is not about infinite bliss and good things and pushing away the bad things all the time. There's things we unfortunately we are on this earth for a limited amount of time, and the people we love and we cherish the most, we will lose them. And that's it's not about like eternal high of bliss and happiness, but there's like ups and downs. But there's no need to make these more painful than they are. I think that's a loss is painful enough, so you don't need to what Buddhists call to get the second arrow, right? You got shot by an arrow and you're like, oh, who is me, right? Kostya Kavutsky of the Chess Dojo says like, don't lose twice. You've lost once. So after you're lost, don't do stupid things that, for example, some people will not want to analyze their loss.
Yes.
Right? Because they think they know why they lost, because they're like, oh yeah, of course I blundered this, so there's no need to, you will justify yourself not going back to this because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's actually, it's probably, there's probably a lot more to learn than just like one single move, right, in a game. Typically you lose for more than one reason.
For sure.
Sometimes, most of the time. And so don't lose twice is like, it's a good mantra from Kostya as well to somehow, you've got to analyze your losses as well.
Yeah. Sort of argues that we want to get that resistance part to as close to zero as possible. Yeah. So pain doesn't intensify, and have the courage to look at it. I mean, a couple of my subscribers put it this way: they either win chess games or they learn. That's how they frame it. You either win or you lose, and you learn a lesson. So they take losses as learning opportunities, I guess. Yeah. That's let's say the ultimate goal perhaps of because you really learn a lot from your losses if you think about that, right? You definitely get some good feedback, because losses only happen because of your mistakes. You must mean that you made a mistake at some point, and you learn a lot from your own mistakes. Actually,
it's chess is this interesting game because it's seemingly all in your control, but there's many more things than just the pieces on the board, including like your own emotions and how you're going to react to this. And we don't consciously want to be upset or consciously want to like get annoyed if we give away an advantage, and so chess players, they feel like they should be in control of everything because the game's about control and you've got your pieces, but like life just does not work that way. And tournament chess, competitive chess, is a way of the game showing you that life doesn't work that way. So it can be especially difficult for for chess player. In poker, for example, like you've got you can play really well and still lose, right? Which is not possible in chess. If you play all the best moves, you will win, right? Or draw, right? If your opponent also plays all the best moves, so you will just not be able to be a good player if that's not like at the core of your playing skills. But in chess, it's possible to reach quite a high level with still having none of this like basic way to relate to your losses. But at some point it catch up. I just want to comment. It's really good what Dan Eisman says, and there definitely is an appropriate level, right? To
optimal level. Yeah.
Yes. To you need to be upset enough that you care about the game. Otherwise, you're not gonna put like the hours and hours and hours. And if one loss breaks you, this is also not going to be possible to reach like beyond some level. And I don't want to I could give you names of top players that so one top player that's really good with handling losses is Sasha Grishuk. Right?
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
And I'm not gonna mention one that got to like quite a high level at the world level, but not quite to the very top because he got so affected by losses.
You mean Sasha Grishuk?
No. Someone else. But I don't want to name that. I don't. There's no point naming that player. But Grishuk is the example of someone who was able to lose and analyze the game and have a good night of sleep afterwards.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's also he keeps getting into time trouble as well, right? He's one of those guys that he's a perfectionist. He wants to play perfect moves at all times, and that puts him into time trouble. And he could not really fully resolve this issue, right? It's easier said than done, of course. But also it might help him actually finding good moves. Yeah, that's also maybe incorrect to say that he just loses because of time trouble. Because getting into time trouble actually also helps him to find the good moves, and so on.
That's I think that's what Peter Fiedler said, that Grishuk is someone he wants to play the best move. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not in his head. I don't know what it's actually time trouble. Sometimes people come to me because it's time trouble is the problem, and there are a variety of reasons for that. I get into time trouble because I'm slow.
How do you mean you're slow? Like you're slow in thinking,
in calculating?
Calculating.
But let me tell you, there's also a lot of there's some perfectionism to it, but there's also an acceptance part to it, because if for a lot of people it goes like this: your position's not great, and let's say you've got 3 candidate moves, and you check one, and at the end of the line it's not so great, and you check the second one and it's also not so great, you check the third one and it's also not so great, I don't know, because you're lacking space or your pieces are uncoordinated or lacking space or whatever the reason is. Okay, so none of the options is fantastic. And then what people do is then they go back to candidate move 1 because none of them is good. So you know what, let me go back to the first line, and they go back 1, 2, 3, right? And you need to recognize by the end of the first one that basically your position is bad. And no matter how you package it, none of your candidate moves that you can see to the best of your ability and visualization is getting you out of it. Right? So do not lose time needlessly for this. So that's a case where it's like, and for a lot, I don't want to place a big diagnosis, but I've seen players for whom that is the problem. They need to accept what the position is, and they need to make a choice, right? And it's like, okay, this is bad. All right, we'll just play a move that doesn't lose right now, that holds things together, and we'll see what the next move brings, right?
Yeah. Also, the practical side of things, it's so important. Sometimes you need to play fast in a worse position to put at least some pressure on your opponent. I think Nepomniachtchi is a very good guy, very practical in this sense. Yeah, he plays very fast moves and to put some pressure on the opponent, and then he can swindle later on during the game. But all these meta ideas as well, like knowing when to stop. I mean, that's a huge meta skill in chess. Knowing when to stop, calculating and playing your move, actually, move by move, depending on how much time you have, and then the board situation. In a losing position, there's nothing to lose. You just play fast, yeah. So all these additional things as well. But perfectionism you mentioned, yes, I'm also affected by it sometimes, from time to time. Trying to find the very best move at all times.
Yeah. In Le Mans, I had this game where I quite like, I think, making move to restrict my opponent's pieces. And so I'd reach like a really commanding position where my opponents had like, really super restricted pieces, and I had like, I had a dream winning position. But then it's like, hold on, I need to, I don't want to break this, and to make progress, I needed to give up some of that control. Right. And I acutely felt like it was something like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to give up some of this control now to bring it home, because otherwise, what am I gonna do? Yes. I can't just keep him like contained forever. Like this. Yeah.
It's so interesting, because usually when we build up a position to its maximum, usually there's this revolution stage where we need some calculation, some tactics to either gain something or sacrifice something to get something, to make it more concrete. And that definitely involves, losing some part of control that you had before, as you mentioned. And that can also block many people. I think I was also blocked in my chess life. That's probably one reason why I couldn't convert all the great positions I had, because of the willingness to keep the control forever.
Because you know what? Yeah. Sometimes you will do it, and then you will lose because you make a mistake, and then it's like, okay, and then your brain's like, haha, you should not have let go of control. That's why you lost. You should have kept your beautiful position. And it's like, that is not the lesson to learn from this, but that's the one so let's say quote unquote primitive brains want to do. They want to keep us safe and alive. And whether the danger is physical or on the chessboard, for us it's all the same. And it's like risk aversion. This concept of risk aversion kicks in really easily.
It's so true. That's probably one reason why many people are afraid of sacrificing material as well, right? Like I have so many students myself, adults, also myself partly, that something's blocking us from sacrificing material. Although we know 100% sure that activity is more important than material in chess. Oftentimes, piece activity is more important. The king safety is more important. You can sacrifice material to catch the king that is unsafe, right? At some point, you need to sacrifice, oftentimes, to win certain positions. And yet, this thing kicks in as well, as you mentioned. In life, usually, right, we tend to be materialistic. We don't want to lose money. We don't want to lose material. And then, also affects our chess moves. But some players are actually willing to sacrifice, There are also stylistic questions here, like Mikhail Tal kind of players. They like to go for gambits. They feel confident in those positions.
Yeah, Jonathan Rawson has this great chapter I think it's in the 7 Deadly Sins about or is it in the Chess for Zebras? I'm not quite sure. Like about how people come up with self-adopted like identities for themselves. I'm an attacking player, and therefore I do sacrifice material even when it's not warranted, and they have to live by these standards, and I think this just holds them back because I think chess is such a concrete game. Like you have to be flexible. I think there's just no way around this.
That is actually so true, Benji, that you mentioned. All these identities that we vow for ourselves, I'm a strategic player. I play like Botvinnik, very systematic, and that can block us actually to play like Kasparov or Tal at some key moments where the position warrants sacrifices.
Yeah. Because it takes, again, it's like sometimes you see online and people say like there's no luck in chess, and I'm like, this is the dumbest take. I will read till the end of time. I will die on this hill. Like, of course, there's a lot of luck in chess. What are you talking about, right? Your opponent plays the line you just looked at like 5 minutes ago. Is this not luck? And sometimes you see it like you've got a strong attack, and sometimes it's just narrowly there's a defense, and the opponent finds it. That's
Right.
luck. I'm sorry. It's like you can say all you want that. Yeah, well, with perfect calculation, of course, there's a defense. Like that's just like luck in the sense of this uncertainty of, you play moves because it's very likely, if you think of the game in terms of expected value, like a poker player, which is very useful in some cases. Like you need to come to grasp with this concept of that there is indeed like in chess, and that can, if you come with this idea that like that's a scientific game, or like there is like everything is in your control, and you try to reject this idea that there is luck, then you will suffer more. That's just plain and simple.
Interesting, yeah. So what I get from your comment is that the game itself is very complex and you just cannot fully calculate everything to the end. So there's always going to be some unknown dimension, right? Like I want to sacrifice material. Well, did you calculate until checkmate? No, nobody can, right? Like there's no way that you calculate 20 moves in depth until checkmate, but you still feel that that's the right moment to sacrifice, and you believe in the dynamics of your pieces to give you enough compensation later on. Yeah, it's partly based on a belief actually that about your chess understanding, that your claim is that this piece activity compensates for the lack of 2 pawns, for example. Yeah, and you play the position, accept the unknown. You still need to play some good move later on, but you choose to go for that line, accepting some of the unknown dimension inherent in the game actually. Yeah.
It's quite fascinating that actually, if you look at computers, we've not quite come up with like any kind of plateauing so far, right? In terms of we've had, and it's this like onion keeps being like peeled. I don't know, to maybe at some point it will slow down. I have no idea. But for example, we had, so I think it's Stockfish 8 when Alpha Zero came out, and Alpha Zero was super dynamic, right? And people were like, oh, you can play dynamically, and yeah, but that doesn't mean that like the ultimate way is like, maybe in 2 years the next engine will be super solid. Like there's so many depth and layers to the way that the computer plays the game, and us human, we're so far below, that that's what is fascinating, because we really have this game that is so vast and so rich and so deep for our own human mind that we won't master it, and well, at least I won't. And that's why it's beautiful. Like we're just having a go at it, right? You're just wrestling with something that's bigger than yourself, that's more beautiful, that like other people have given up. And there's not one way to play. You can see like at the top level, you would think, sometimes you see also people like, oh, it's all prep, it's all prep, it's all prep. Yeah, I'm sorry, but like, even if it's all prep, Ali Reza, once it's a middle game, like Nepo is going to play different from Ding, and Ali Reza is going to play differently from Fabi. And the way the personality and the way to look at these players shows up. Again, that's usually not something I'm able to see by myself, but when I look at recap that are quite in depth, you can see like, yeah, that's just because there's so much richness in the games that I feel at my level I need someone else to hold me by the end to show me how rich and deep it is. But I can see that these players really put their own personality in as an imprint of the game, and that's why I think, as I forgot who said this advice, that you have to come up with your own theory. And I was like, yes, as an amateur, 100%. There's so much, type of position you like, I mean, I know I have types of pawn structure I like.
Like,
You know, as white, for example, I like to play F4. So, I've played the Grand Prix. I've played the Stone Wall, stuff like that. To me, I enjoy some kind of patterns, or like, playing B3 with like, if your opponents go D5, C5, Knight C6, then you play E3, F4, stuff like that.
Right.
And it's just like even though like it's not going to be the best theory, that's not the best thing, but it just doesn't matter. Like, it's like you come up with this own like mini patterns that you find are interesting and enjoyable, and that's kind of interesting. Also, now that I say it, there's a I think it's in a year in like the forgot the title of the book. I think it's A Year in Chess by Danny Gormally. And in this book, he analyzes a game by a player who's an amateur player. I don't know, maybe 2100 level or 2200 level, something like this. And that player just basically also created his own theory, and he likes to push pawns and have pieces behind pawns. This is kind of like really peculiar way of looking at the game, and obviously reach like decent level. Of course, that's not like gonna be world class, because again you need some, but at the amateur level you need to enjoy the thing as well. You need to protect the love you have for the game, whatever like will help you keep on playing, keep on studying, and maybe that means playing these structures and opening you like. I think one of the hardest openings to play as an amateur is the King's Indian. 100%. You have less space. White has a million ways to deal with it, and very slight variation of white setup will require you to play in different ways, right? And often you won't get this kingside attack you want to have, right? But if that's what makes you happy, because once in a while you get this, like life is too short. Life's too short to play like the best opening, right? So it's in a way, and a lot of players are like and often professionals. You get into like this routine, and you're on autopilot, and it's travel from tournament to tournament, and it's like, wait, can we reconnect you to what you love about the game?
Right.
Can you enjoy like moving pieces in anger? And that's as important for student, because there's so much studying involved, and it's like study, and then tournament feels like work. Also, you take time off work, or you take time from your loved ones, and you travel somewhere. So it's like your vacation budget is gone, your money is gone, and then you're there. It feels like work, and you don't enjoy it. And then it's just like, why are we doing this? And often it's just like, try to bring things that doesn't mean don't work hard, but that means that you need to nourish your soul, for lack of a better word, in terms of like making enjoyable activities as well. I think this goes in waves in terms of like how much structure and things are brought into the game. And now like the kids, they go on Chessable, they'll take Anish Giri's Najdorf, they will learn all the lines, they'll be 2200 by age 12 or 14, and like, great, that's one way. But like for a lot of amateurs, and actually for a lot of older professionals, what really makes you happy about the game? How do you protect this like the most precious thing you have? Because that's what gets you to put in the hard work. And so now it's like, well, Benji, how do I like? Of course, why you love the game and why you play chess is different. But I love to recommend people books that have like some soul to it, right? So you're gonna tell me now. I'm gonna tell you my mini list of books I recommend, and then you're gonna give me your mini list of books to recommend.
Sure.
Under the Surface
Oh, that was my first as well. That's crazy, Benji. That was my first in my list. Under the Surface, guys, by Jan Marcos. Amazing
Yeah.
book. Yeah.
The Anon Files.
Yeah, Anon Files is also great. Yes.
And The Life of Games of Tal.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Right. So these are like three, go-tos in terms of, Game Changer, if you're like, a little bit science-minded.
Yeah.
So these are example of books with like, you're going to read because it's also fun to read and it brings you something and it pulls you in the, or like, any kind of game which is about maybe a player you want to learn about. Right. So which other books you think have some soul to recommend to people for to keep their love alive?
Yeah, for sure. Under the Surface is definitely, I've read the book 3 times more or less. It's so philosophical, psychological, interesting, thought-provoking, unique in many dimensions. But that's a more recent one. In the old ones, for sure, Life and Games of Mikhail Tal, as you said, because of the very history of Tal and all the anecdotes that he had during those tournaments, those stories, and also Botvinnik versus Tal, World Championship 1960. That's interesting because of the clashes of styles, as you mentioned. We talked about styles today, and Botvinnik and Tal had very different styles. They approached this beautiful game, rich game, and that was a real clash that was going on. And Jonathan Ralphson books, both of them, 7 Deadly Chess Sins. I enjoyed a lot when I read it. Also, Chess for Zebras, very thought-provoking as well. Philosophical and meta approach to this beautiful game, and all the psychological struggles that we have affecting us, for sure that had an impact on me when I was growing. On the chess side of things, of course, Zurich 1953, because of all the amazing games that had impact on me. Capablanca's Fundamentals was my very first book given to me by my grandmother that changed the trajectory of my life, probably, in hindsight. What else? There are more interesting ones. Recently there's also this book called Think Like a Super Grandmaster. Have you read it? Think like a Super GM by Hurtado and Michael Adams. Michael Adams was the co-author. And they also gave the same positions to vast different skill levels. Amateurs, candidate masters, club players, all the way to Michael Adams and GM. And they compared how different people approach the very same positions. They had some sort of statistical analysis as well, how grandmasters differ from amateurs, what they are looking, what they are ignoring, their evaluations, candidate moves, and very scientifically interesting as well. Very unique as well. Yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I don't know. I think it's is it Michel Hurtado?
Yes, Michel Hurtado and Michael Adams. Yes.
I don't know him personally, but he had like originally the idea of like such a book, and then he collaborated with Mickey to bring the book to life, and all these players looking at it. It's great. I know Mickey very well, actually, from the English team.
Amazing.
Is a delightful human being. I love hanging out with him. He's got this. He is the person with the quintessential British dry humor, and I just love chatting with him because it's always such a fun conversation, and is such a fantastic professional
player.
Is really, if you ask me, people who are great professional of chess, is going to be in among the people at the top of the page that I would name.
Such longevity.
I just love Mickey. Yeah.
Do you think he's practicing meditation and all the things that you mentioned today, like all the psychological sides?
I don't think so.
Comes natural to him, perhaps.
Not quite sure. It's just it's just a very no nonsense, dedicated, hard worker. It's I think it's like there's this notion of, I think this is talent. He always takes the game seriously. He takes his own like health and wellness seriously. He's very fit. And that's something that's good, right?
Sure.
There's always this question of talent in chess, that people come up, and the ability, all the mental side, how good you are at like handling losses and doing these things, and being a professional. To me, it's all like, it's all one package of what talent is, right? Definitely the ability to work hard, the ability to. So it's not. Often it's like, okay, if I put 1 unit of work, what unit of improvement do I get out? And, you could say like talents at multiplier, that input to output in terms of playing skill. But it's like, it's so much more. It's like over the months and years, like how you're able to like, bring everything together. And so, that's why some players become number one and some players just don't.
Yeah. Benji, we've been covering so much ground. Maybe before we finish, maybe we already sort of covered it, but there's a student of mine, Fred, who also contacted you. That he asked me this specific question. That he said sometimes I go into games in a losing mentality or like overly confident mindset, independent of my opponent's ranking. Right, he just tells me that some games I know that I will win before the game starts, and sometimes I have this losing mentality, and I lose that game before the game starts.
Yeah, Fred, I'm going to be working with Fred.
Really, that's amazing. Yeah. Cool.
I think it's a case of like here for pre-game, we have a lot of tools that we know work very well that have been developed by people over the years, right? To get into there, and I've kind of like tailored them for chess. I love to. That's one of the first thing I do is like ask people if they have a pre-game routine and what is it. I think first of all, I think the most important thing is to have a routine versus not having a routine. Right, whatever this is, right? If your routine is to Ono likes to yell, "I'm gonna win" with his kid, right? That's a fantastic routine. I love it. It's so having a routine is step one. Okay, routine. Now if you don't have one, or if like you've got these big variations, I think it's you can put yourself into a good frame of mind. I am 100%. I know it's possible to bring flow more or less on demand, right, and bring yourself back, right, and well, of course, there's like some work to lead up to this. It's what I like to do is like get people back to what it feels like to play good chess, because that's something you can't put really into words, right? What does it feel when you calculate really well, right? It's not something that typically people will be able to articulate. Right? It's like, I can hold all the variations and I can see very deep and very clearly, but it's kind of like, it is what it is. So, and I call this like, that it's like, if I ask you, what does lemon juice taste like? Well, you can describe it and it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of, acidic and tangy and tingles my tongue and stuff like that. But the words won't make justice to what it is, right? But if I ask you to think now, what does lemon juice taste like? You're going to be able to recall what the taste is, right? So, so good calculation, good chess is like the taste of lemon juice. So it's about like, because let's put it like this. You want to be in flow, or you want to be in the good. But if you don't, if it's like you have a map, but you don't know which way is north, you don't know where to aim at. That's a problem. So the first thing for people is to say, damn, this is north on your map. This is how you feel when you play good chess, right? And you can, for example, recall some of the best moves you played in some of your favorite games, right? That's a really good one, Oh man, like that. You remember that when you calculated that sacrifice, bishop takes h7, then all the way to mate, like 5 moves later, like that's how you want to play all the time. So okay, you just maybe have like a mini routine that first of all of routine of what you're going to do when you arrive at the board and stuff, and maybe of remembering yourself these key moments of how it felt, right? I'm not a yeah. So I think that's that's my approach. Does this all make sense? What I'm
Yeah, it makes
describing?
perfect sense. Yeah, I try to recall myself as well in those moments. Just one particular game come to my mind. I made a video about this. This swindling sacrifice, queen sacrifice, that I swindled a bad position and mated the opponent in 3 moves. That was probably the most joy I felt during the chess game. Probably the best idea that I even generated as a chess player. I remember the feeling very, very vividly right now. Actually, that was a very important tournament game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's step one. Like, put north on your map, and then step 2 is like, well, yeah, get your map out before your game, right? So, I said, like, it's imagine you could, like, you had like a little bottle in your pocket with some lemon juice, so you can, like, drink a little bit. Yeah, that's, remind yourself what the taste is like. So having a way to bring to your mind, like, how you play chess when you play it very well is gonna be the way to go.
Amazing. Yeah.
I've been experimenting with a little bit mantras. So especially before the game in the morning, to let go of stress, where I learned the text by heart, and then I repeat it in my mind, not to push but to kind of like have replacement, just to experiment with, like, different types of techniques. And I want to write a blog post about this, like how to get people to learn the text like this, with some memory technique, like a memory palace, and then how they can put something together for themselves that they can then use as a practical panic button. Okay, all right, I'm overwhelmed by stress or by something. You just, like, go through your memory palace to say your mantra, or your sentences, your things, and if I find time to, I've got, like, always, like, a list of topics I want to write about, but that's when I want to bring to people for them to experiment.
That would be amazing, especially for long tournaments, because people also struggle in long tournaments, as you mentioned. I mean, like, these days, 2 days for, like, sometimes 6 rounds. I mean, like, it's really challenging for people to adapt themselves, and so maybe those mantras, those little routines that can make a difference.
I think we didn't talk about anything that's related to physiology and mental fatigue, but I think it's like, you have to see it as layers, right? Like, you need to be able to sleep well, to eat well, to exercise, to be good feel good in your body before you put into place, like, mental techniques, right? So all of these steps beforehand have to be taken care of, right? Otherwise, you're just building on sand, right? Because if you're sleep deprived, like, there's not much you're gonna be, like, your mental, your ability to control your emotions and thoughts, feelings, sensation will be vastly degraded, right? So I'm not a sleep doctor, but, like, I can point people, I can, by getting people to realize maybe they should go see one, if required. But feel good in your body is step 1, whatever that means. Whatever that means for you.
And also find a way in those long tournaments, to get your sleep not get affected by your losses, let's say, having this mentality of stopping resistance, and find a way to still have a good night's sleep, even though you lost, let's say, in that particular day, in a very painful way.
This is where I'm going to plug my course again.
Yes. Yeah, Benji, your course, I will post a link to this video description. Your course, there is around $30 that you describe all these processes for people. I checked it myself, it looks amazing. A couple of my students I also found it very useful, and now they take lessons from you, so highly recommend it. Your blog Substack is called Mind Creaser, right?
Yeah.
Mind Creaser Substack. I will also post a link here. There's a website as well that they can read your articles on that. And what else, Benji? Are there any
I'm easy to find on social media, so people can easily find me. and get in touch.
Yes, please.
And again, thank you so much for having me. You know, and I will look forward to further episodes of your podcast.
This was only the
with
beginning,
great
by the way.
anticipation.
Yeah, we could spend 4 hours today. There are so many questions that we can still discuss, but like let's
keep it some for
rush
next
things.
time.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
We are here for the long run. I'm having this growth mindset, long-term perspectives. So I would love to host you again, Benji. I enjoyed it a lot. You definitely took the conversation today. Didn't even leave me so much, like well.
So yeah, I think I've been rambling so much.
No,
it feels like I was not letting you ask your questions.
It feels like this is the best. Sometimes I feel lazy. Sometimes I want my guest to take over the initiative and speak out and then just because you're an expert in this and you know so much that I don't know. So it's good that you took this over, and I'm sure many subscribers will find benefit to this. And please, guys, by the way, you can comment, you can ask any questions to us, and I will let Benji know, and he can reply, or I can reply on behalf of him, or we can bring him back to this channel and we discuss in the future. Yeah. Thank you so much again.
Thank
Benji.
you, John.
Yes, and wishing you all the best. Happy New Year as well. All the best wishes for your next turn results. See you very soon.